Welcome back to our cozy reading corner and back to Through the Looking Glass. I hope you had a wonderful Sunday, and let's get ready to read. Good night. Very old matches. I did get a new candle for our corner, since the other ones were quite, they were all burned up, but this is actually not new. It's like an old votive in this cool little wire green holder with nice dragonfly detail. Nice next to our cherry blossoms. This little wire tail. Green votive glass. So pretty. Very Wonderland-like. Alright. Now let's get our very old matches. Hopefully we can get this on the first try. On the second try, my goodness. Okay. No, that doesn't look, I'm not gonna try that guy. These are so old. I actually have a lighter over there, but of course it stopped working a few minutes ago, literally. So hopefully we can. Let's try this side. There it is. My ever-present mug of ginger ale. Take a sample, I walk around and, pardon me, turn out the lights with you guys. I hope you had a wonderful Sunday. Are you cozied up? Are your lights out? Are you cuddled with your favorite blanket and ready for me to read you to sleep, 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 sleep? I'm so ready to relax and read with you guys. With my favorite mug of my favorite beverage, ginger ale, Canada Dry. Nothing else. Shut this out. Oh, it's so much better. Get a nice cozy pillow, fluffy pillow, blanket, a beverage, ginger ale or otherwise, hot tea, some like a glass of wine. Can be lovely sometimes, depending. But definitely a nice soft pillow, some good lighting, and a cozy blanket. And we're back to Through the Looking Glass. It's so good to be back to our little corner. I hope you're ready for a story. And where were we? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. So excited about this. We were in the beginning, well, the middle of the scene with Alice and the talking flowers, which is just by far my favorite. Well, I love the Cheshire Cat. Love the caterpillar. As far as the Wonderland part goes, and I didn't realize that they had kind of combined these two for all of the movies. My favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes in the cartoon Disney version is when she is talking and singing with the flowers. And that is where we stop last. Here's the picture. The tiger lily and the daisies. I am so sorry if you hear background noise. The dishwasher is going. And we did just wind down for the night, so there might be a husband, a son, and a dog in the background coming to get water. But I think we are safely in the reading zone now, so hopefully the background noise only adds to the ambiance. Okay. Oh my goodness, were we this far in? Yeah, I guess, okay. So the flowers had kind of been, pardon me, adjust the camera a bit. The flowers had kind of been messing with Alice, insulting her a bit. And then the Red Queen started to approach, and that's where we were. We stopped at this place here. And so as usual, I'll go a paragraph or two back, and we'll all catch up together, my loves. So here we go. Okay. So she's coming, cried the larkspur. I hear her footsteps thump, thump along the gravel walk. Alice looked round eagerly and found that it was the Red Queen. She's grown a good deal, was her first remark. She had indeed. When Alice first found her in the ashes, she had been only 3 inches high, and there she was, half a head taller than Alice herself. It's the fresh air that does it, said the rose. Wonderfully fine air it is out here. I think I'll go and meet her, said Alice, for though the flowers were interesting enough, she felt that it would be far grander to have a talk with a real queen. You can't possibly do that, said the rose. I should advise you to walk the other way. This sounded nonsense to Alice, so she said nothing, but set off at once towards the Red Queen. To her surprise, she lost sight of her in a moment, and found herself walking in at the front door again. A little provoked, she drew back, and, after looking everywhere for the Queen, whom she spied out at last, a long way off, she thought she would try the plan, this time, of walking in the opposite direction. It succeeded beautifully. She had not been walking a minute before she found herself face to face with the Red Queen, and full in sight of the hill she had been so long aiming at. Where do you come from? Said the Red Queen, and where are you going? Look up, speak nicely, and don't twiddle your fingers all the time. Alice attended to all these directions and explained, as well as she could, that she had lost her way. I don't know what you mean by your way, said the Queen. All the ways about here belong to me. But why did you come out here at all? She asked in a kinder tone. Curtsy while you're thinking. what to say. Curtsy while you're thinking what to say, pardon me. It saves time. Alice wondered a little at this, but she was too much in awe of the Queen to disbelieve it. I'll try it when I go home, she thought to herself, the next time I'm late for dinner. It's time for you to answer now, the Queen said, looking at her watch. Open your mouth a little wider when you speak and always say, Your Majesty. I only wanted to see what the garden was like, Your Majesty. That's right, said the Queen, patting her on the head, which Alice didn't like at all. Though, when you say garden, I've seen gardens compared with this, with which this would be a wilderness. Alice didn't dare argue the point, but went on. And I thought I'd try and find my way to the top of that hill. When you say hill, the Queen interrupted, I could show you the hills in comparison with which you'd call that a valley. No, I shouldn't, said Alice, surprised into contradicting her at last. A hill can't be a valley, you know. That would be nonsense. Let's see what the Queen says to that. The Red Queen shook her head. You may call it nonsense if you like, she said, but I've heard nonsense compared with which that would be as sensible as a dictionary. Alice curtsied again, as she was afraid from the Queen's tone that she was a little offended, and they walked on in silence till they got to the top of the little hill. For some minutes Alice stood without speaking, looking out into all the directions over the country. And most curious country it was. There were a number of tiny little brooks running straight across it from side to side, and the ground between was divided up into squares by a number of little green hedges that reached from brook to brook. I declare it's marked out just like a large chessboard, Alice said at last. There ought to be some men moving about somewhere. And so there are, she added in a tone of delight, and her heart began to beat quick with excitement as she went on. It's a great, huge game of chess that's being played all over the world, if this is the world at all, you know. Oh, what fun it is. How I wish I was one of them. I wouldn't mind being a pawn, if only I might join. Though, of course, I should like to be a queen at best. She glanced rather shyly at the real Queen as she said this, but her companion only smiled pleasantly and said, That's easily managed. You can be the White Queen's pawn if you'd like. As Lily's too young to play, and you're in the second square to begin with. When you get to the 8th square, you'll be a queen. Just at this moment, somehow or other, they began to run. Alice never could quite make out, in thinking it over afterwards, how it was that they had begun. All she remembers is that they were running hand in hand, and the Queen went so fast it was all she could do to keep up with her, and still the Queen kept crying, Faster, faster, but Alice felt she could not go faster, though she had no breath left to say so. The most curious part of the thing was that the trees and the other things round them never changed their places at all, however fast they went. They never seemed to pass anything. I wonder if all the things move along with us, thought poor puzzled Alice, and the Queen seemed to guess her thoughts, for she cried, Faster, don't try to talk. Not that Alice had any idea of doing that. She felt as if she would never be able to talk again. She was getting so much out of breath, and still the Queen cried, Faster, faster, and dragged her along. Are we nearly there? Alice managed to pant out at last. Nearly there, the Queen repeated. Why, we passed it 10 minutes ago. Faster! And they ran on for a time in silence, with the wind whistling in Alice's ears, and almost blowing her hair off her head, she fancied. Now, now, cried the Queen, faster, faster, and they went so fast that at last they seemed to skim through the air, hardly touching the ground with their feet, till suddenly, just as Alice was getting quite exhausted, they stopped, and she found herself sitting on the ground, breathless and giddy. The Queen propped her up against a tree and said kindly, "You may rest a little now." Alice looked round in her great surprise. "Why, I do believe you've been under this tree the whole time. Everything's just as it was." It's the back of the chessboard. I love these illustrations. There's another of the Queen running, with lovely Alice through the field. "Everything's just as it was." "Of course it is," said the Queen. "What would you have it?" "Well, in our country," said Alice, still panting a little, "you generally get somewhere else if you ran very fast for a long time, as we've been doing." "A slow sort of country," said the Queen. "Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that." "I'd rather not try, please," said Alice. "I'm quite content to stay here, only I am so hot and thirsty." "I know what you'd like," the Queen said good-naturedly, taking a little box out of her pocket. "Have a biscuit?" Alice thought it would not be civil to say no, though it wasn't at all what she wanted. So she took it and ate it as well as she could. It was very dry, and she thought she had never been so nearly choked in all her life. "While you're refreshing yourself," said the Queen, "I'll just take the measurements." And she took a ribbon out of her pocket, marked it in inches, and began measuring the ground and sticking little pegs here and there. "At the end of 2 yards," she said, putting a peg to mark the distance, "I shall give you your directions. Have another biscuit?" "No, thank you," said Alice. "One's quite enough." "Thirst quenched, I hope," said the Queen. Alice did not know what to say to this, but luckily the Queen did not wait for an answer, but went on. "At the end of 3 yards I shall repeat them, for fear of your forgetting them. At the end of 4 I shall say goodbye. At the end of 5 I shall go." She had got all the pegs put in by this time, and Alice looked on with great interest as she returned to the tree, then began slowly walking down the row. As the 2-yard peg she faced round and said, "A pawn goes 2 squares in its first move, you know. So you'll go very quickly through the 3rd square, by railway, I should think, and you'll find yourself in the 4th square in no time. Well, that square belongs to Tweedledum and Tweedledee. The 5th is mostly water. The 6th belongs to Humpty Dumpty. But you make no remark?" I didn't know I had to make one." Just then, Alice faltered out. "You should have said," the Queen went on in a tone of grain reproof. "Pardon me. It's extremely kind of you to tell me all this. However, we'll suppose it said, the 7th square is all forest. However, one of the knights will show you the way. And in the 8th square we shall be queens together, and it's all feasting and fun." Alice got up and curtsied and sat down again. At the next peg, the Queen turned again, and this time she said, "Speak in French when you can't think of the English for a thing. Turn out your toes as you walk, and remember who you are." She did not wait for Alice to curtsy this time, but walked on quickly to the next peg, where she turned for a moment to say, "Goodbye," then hurried on to the last. How it happened, Alice never knew, But exactly as she came to the last peg, she was gone. Whether she vanished into thin air, or whether she ran quickly into the wood, and she can run very fast, thought Alice. There was no way of guessing, but she was gone, and Alice began to remember that she was a pawn, and that it would soon be time for her to move. Let's read. So we're going into Looking Glass Insects, the next chapter. Let's go a little further. We'll go over to these stars. Stars, stars, stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shining stars. Okay. Of course, the first thing to do was make a grand survey of the country she was going to travel through. It's something very like learning geography, thought Alice, as she stood on tiptoe in hopes of being able to see a little further. Principal rivers, there are none. Principal mountains, I am on the only one, but I don't think it's got any name. Principal towns, why, what are those creatures making honey down there? They can't be bees. Nobody ever saw bees a mile off, you know. A mile off, you know, pardon. And for some time she stood silent, watching one of them that was bustling about among the flowers, poking its proboscis into them. Proboscis into them. It's just as if it was a regular bee, thought Alice. However, this was anything but a regular bee. In fact, it was an elephant. As soon as Alice found out, although the idea quite took her breath away from her at first. And what enormous flowers they must be, she said, was her next idea. Something like cottages with the roofs taken off and stalks put to them. And what quantities of honey they must make. I think I'll go down and... No, I won't go just yet, she went on, checking herself just as she was beginning to run down the hill and trying to find some excuse for turning shy so suddenly. It'll never do to go down among them without a good long branch to brush them away, and what fun it'll be when they ask me how I liked my walk. I shall say, oh, I liked it well enough. Here came the favorite little toss of the head, only it was so dusty and hot, and the elephants did tease so. I think I'll go down the other way, she said after a pause. And perhaps I may visit the elephants later on. Besides, I do so want to get into the third square. So with this excuse, she ran down the hill and jumped over the first of the 6 little brooks. And we'll stop there for tonight, shining stars. Finish the 3rd chapter tomorrow. Maybe go a little into the 4th. Thank you for coming back to read with me. It's always so nice. I hope you're enjoying the story. I'm excited to see. Well, excited to finish this one first. It's so enjoyable to read the original story, which all the movies were based on. I'm so excited to pick a new story to read with you all soon. And I hope you're nice and sleepy. I hope you're nice and cozy. And I hope this helped you relax. God bless all of you, my shining stars. And I'll be so happy to see you tomorrow.